Hello everyone, it's Menenberg again with some multiple choice strategies. If you've been watching some of these videos, my goal is to give you some skills, some strategies, some helpful resources so that you can do better on AP history exams. This is for AP Euro, AP World, AP US. Now, I'm going to focus on the world content for these particular sample questions, but its principles apply across the board. You got to get better at this, you got to get faster, and these videos are designed to help. Okay, so I'm going to do a screen share, and again, I'm looking at a stimulus from Unit 6 of the AP Modern World History content. Now, it doesn't matter that you haven't read the book. It doesn't matter that you haven't studied this content recently. You can use some general knowledge of world history to probably get to an answer. And again, remember, on the AP history exam, whichever exam it is you're taking, it's 40% of your grade is the multiple choice. There's 55 questions, and you have 55 minutes. That means you got to go quick. And that means when you see a fat passage like this, you don't have time to read it all. So stop doing that. Again, I'm going to remind you, it is a bad practice to read the stimulus before you read the question. I'm going to suggest to you in this video and the previous one as well, that it's actually a bad practice to read all of the stimulus in general. You should avoid it if you can and minimize it if you are going to do well. Okay, so let's read this question. Again, passage is long. It's about 3 or 4 paragraphs. I don't have time for that. Question is this. With Bowie, again, haven't heard of this guy, perspective in the last paragraph is historically significant because it most directly illustrates which of the following rationales for African people resisting European imperial encroachment. Okay, so we're talking about imperialism. I know based on just looking at the date of 1894 on that passage, it's in the late 19th century. Fine, there's imperialism in Africa. We got it. We don't need to know every detail. I don't need to know who this dude is. I don't need to know who his people are. I barely even need to know where it is in Africa because there's a general pattern that took place at this point in time in imperialism in Africa. Okay? I'm not saying don't study it. I'm not saying you haven't read it or don't know it from your review or the Heimler videos. That's great. I'm saying in a test where you're crunched for time, you're feeling anxious, you want to kind of be efficient. So let's forego the fact that you don't need, you just don't need to look up this guy on Wikipedia to get this question right. Is what I'm trying to say. You don't need to read the passage 3 times to understand what he's doing. Okay? Historically significant. When you ever see historically significant, you should automatically think this is going to relate to general history content from this era, generally. Okay? So if I'm looking through my answer choices, there might be some stuff that I know isn't real or isn't true. So let's look at those. A, resistance to safeguard valuable natural resource threatened by European economic imperialism. Maybe. There were some resources. There was some rubber, some diamonds, some gold. Okay, cool. Resistance to protect the right and practice native African religions threatened by European missionary activities. Okay, there were some Christian missionaries that went in there. Sure, there was some native African religions. There was also Islam there for centuries. I don't know that that was a really big deal, so I'm probably going to eliminate B. C, resistance to preserve traditional political structures threatened by direct European territorial expansion. What were those? They were tribal governments. Okay, you had many different competing tribes within these African places. They're trying to preserve that. That's just local autonomy, maybe. D, resistance to restore pre-19th century native states and empires destroyed by earlier waves of European colonialism. I don't know about that. I've at least eliminated C, and we're looking at the last paragraph for his perspective. So basically, the question is saying that African people are resisting European imperial encroachment. Okay, they're resisting. Great. Let's look at what he says in the last paragraph, because I don't need to read the first 2. You say that you are sorry that I do not accept German protection and do not pledge my allegiance to the German Empire, blah, blah. Here's my answer. I never in my life have seen the German Empire, and I'm sure he's never seen me. Therefore, I could hardly possibly hurt him. God has made us both rulers in different parts of the world. I don't think that one can call someone guilty if he wants to remain an independent ruler of his own land and people. If you intend now to have me killed because of my love of independence, this is not shame or harm. If I have to die, I shall do as an honest man defending my property and my rights. Okay, so again, no religion part, okay? Nothing about natural resources. We got traditional political structures. Yes, we got native states and empires. Sure. So it's between C and D. And I've barely touched this passage. I've cruised through in a hurry, skimmed. not even every word on my eyes, okay? So I don't need to do that. And again, you need to save time by avoiding reading the entire passage 3 times. You don't need to do it. If you're only reading that last passage, you should be able to eliminate 2 choices just by way of that. You're down to C or D. Preserve traditional political structures and restore pre-19th century. It sounds a little bit more like D if I'm being honest, because it's going back to what he has. So if I'm looking at this, it's C or D. Traditional political structures. He's saying he's a ruler. I'm going to actually select C. C makes more sense. C is the right answer. Okay, you can check me on that and make sure I'm right. But look, again, people, a minute per question, you don't have time. How many times do I have to say it? You don't have time to read the passage. You don't have time to read it twice, let alone 3 times for the 3 questions that correspond to this passage. So you got to get efficient, you got to get quick, and I'm suggesting to you that your knowledge of Africa in general is going to help you get to at least a 50-50 shot. In strategy-wise, people, look, if I'm not sure, like if I'm C or D on this and I'm not 100% sure, I'm going to write down somewhere, come back to this question, come back to question 7 when you have more time, but move on. Select C, select D, choose one and move on. Come back at the end, but make sure you've answered every question, okay? Okay. People, we're going to continue. In the next video, I'm going to show you another example from an image that illustrates the need to read the question before you read the stimulus. Okay? Thank you very much. And remember, my friends, life is about choices.